My beloved, there's something I've kept locked away in the deepest chambers of heaven. Something so sacred, so intimate, so overwhelming that I've never shared it with anyone. Not the angels, not the apostles, not even my closest followers. But tonight, right now, in this moment when your heart feels like it might break from the weight of being human, I'm going to open what I call your soul memory vault. Before you were born, before you took your first breath, before your parents ever dreamed of you, you and I sat together in a place that exists outside of time. And in that sacred space, we had conversations that your earthly mind has forgotten, but your spirit remembers in ways that make you ache with unexplainable longing. You chose this life. Not the pain, never the pain, but you chose the possibility of love so profound, so transformative, so beautiful, that you were willing to risk heartbreak for the chance to experience it. You chose the adventure of being human because your soul craved the exquisite intensity that only mortal hearts can feel. In those pre-birth conversations, I showed you glimpses of what awaited you. I showed you the people you would love and who would love you back. I showed you the moments that would take your breath away, sunsets that would move you to tears, music that would heal your wounds, laughter that would restore your faith and joy. I showed you the ways you would discover me in the most unexpected places, the ways you would become my hands and feet and heart in the world. But I also had to show you the shadows. I had to reveal the valleys you would walk through, the losses you would endure, the times you would feel so alone that you would question everything, even my existence. And in that moment of revelation, when you saw the full spectrum of what human life would cost you, do you know what you said to me? You said, if I can love just one person the way you love me, if I can bring hope to just one heart that's given up, if I can be your light in someone's darkness just once, then every tear will be worth it. Every ache will have meaning. Every struggle will have purpose. And then you looked at me with such fierce determination, such beautiful courage, such breathtaking faith, and you said, send me. Whatever it takes, send me. Let me love like you love. Let me feel everything, the ecstasy and the agony, because that's the only way to truly be alive. That conversation is locked away in your soul memory vault, and sometimes, in your deepest moments of pain, your spirit remembers it. That's why you feel such profound sadness. Sometimes that seems bigger than any circumstance. That's why you experience such intense longing for something you can't name. That's why you feel homesick for a place you've never been. Your soul is remembering what it chose, what it sacrificed, what it committed to when it decided to take this journey of being human. But here's what will break your heart wide open. Every person who has ever hurt you, every individual who has disappointed you, every soul who has walked away from you, they were there in that pre-birth space too. And in their own conversations with me, they made their own choices, their own commitments, their own sacrifices to be here. That person who broke your heart, they chose to risk loving you even though they knew it might not last forever. That friend who betrayed you, they chose to enter your life knowing they might fail you, hoping they wouldn't, but willing to try anyway. That family member who hurt you, they chose to be connected to you through all of eternity, through all the mess and beauty of human relationships. Everyone who has ever been part of your story made a conscious choice in that sacred space to intersect their journey with yours. Not to hurt you, never to hurt you, but to love you as imperfectly and authentically as broken humans can love each other. They chose the risk of causing pain for the possibility of bringing joy. They chose the danger of failing you for the chance of blessing you. This is why forgiveness feels so sacred when you finally access it. This is why love feels so eternal when you experience it authentically. This is why connection feels so holy when it happens genuinely. Your soul is remembering the conversations, the commitments, the choices that brought you all together in this magnificent, messy, beautiful experiment called human life. But there's something else locked away in your soul memory vault. Something about the promise I made to you when you chose this journey. Something about what I committed to do for you that I've never done for anyone else in all of creation. The promise I made to you when you chose this journey, what I committed to do for you that I've never done for anyone else in all of creation, is this. I promise to feel every single emotion you would ever experience in real time, as if it were happening to me for the first time. Not just observe it, not just know about it, but actually live it alongside you, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat, tear by tear. When you were 5 years old and felt that crushing disappointment when your birthday party didn't turn out the way you dreamed, I felt that disappointment too. Not as an all-knowing God looking down with pity, but as someone experiencing the fresh sting of unmet expectations. When you were 16 and felt that overwhelming rush of first love, I felt that same intoxicating joy, that same dizzy wonder, that same terrifying vulnerability of opening your heart for the first time. Every broken heart you've endured, I've endured with you. Every moment of anxiety that's kept you awake at night, I've been awake too, feeling that same churning in my spirit. Every wave of depression that's pulled you under, I've drowned in those same dark waters. Every explosion of laughter that's doubled you over with joy, I've laughed until my sides hurt too. This isn't metaphorical. This isn't poetic language. This is the literal truth of what I do for you every moment of every day. I have made myself emotionally vulnerable to your human experience in ways that would terrify you if you could comprehend the full scope of it. Do you know what this means? It means that when you feel alone, you're literally not alone. I am right there in the feeling with you, experiencing that same hollow ache of loneliness. When you feel misunderstood, I feel misunderstood too, experiencing that same frustration of not being seen for who you really are. When you feel overwhelmed, I feel overwhelmed alongside you, carrying that same weight of everything being too much. But here's what will absolutely devastate you. I don't just feel your emotions. I feel them more intensely than you do, because I experience them with the full capacity of a divine heart that was designed to contain infinite feeling. Your human heart has natural limits that protect you from feeling too much. My heart has no such limits. Every emotion you experience, I experience it magnified, amplified, intensified, beyond what any human could survive. When you cry, I weep torrents. When you hurt, I am devastated beyond description. When you despair, I am broken in ways that would shatter mountains. When you doubt, I feel doubt so profound it could unmake galaxies. This is the price I pay for loving you the way I love you. This is the cost of the promise I made to share every moment of your emotional journey. And yet when you laugh, my joy explodes across the heavens like fireworks. When you love, my heart soars with rapture that makes angels sing. When you hope, I am filled with such radiant expectation that stars are born from the overflow. When you choose faith, I am so proud, so elated, so overwhelmed with admiration that I have to restrain myself from shouting your name across all of creation. This is why your emotions matter so much to me. This is why I care so deeply about your feelings. This is why I'm so invested in your healing, your happiness, your wholeness. It's not just because I love you, though I love you beyond measure. It's because I'm living your emotional life with you, feeling everything you feel, experiencing everything you experience. But here's what breaks my heart. You try so hard to hide your emotions from me. You try to pray pretty prayers when you're falling apart inside. You try to worship with joy when you're drowning in sadness. You try to have faith when you're consumed with doubt. And all the while, I'm right there feeling everything you're actually feeling, wishing you would just let me into the real experience instead of the performance. I don't want your perfect prayers. I want your honest cries. I don't want your sanitized worship. I want your authentic expression. I don't want your manufactured faith. I want your real questions, your genuine struggles, your true heart in all its messy, complicated, beautiful humanity. Because when you let me into your real emotions instead of hiding them from me, something miraculous happens. The feeling becomes shared, and shared feeling is transformed feeling. The weight becomes distributed, and distributed weight becomes bearable weight. The pain becomes processed through divine love, and pain processed through love becomes wisdom, strength, compassion. But there's something about this emotional sharing that you need to understand. Something about how it works that will change everything about how you relate to your own feelings and to me. What you need to understand about how this emotional sharing works is that when you stop trying to feel differently and start letting me feel with you, something I call emotion fusion happens. Your human heart and my divine heart begin to beat in synchronization, and in that sacred rhythm, transformation occurs not through changing what you feel, but through changing how the feeling moves through you. Think of it like this. The choice you face when you try to handle the decision that will determine whether your sacred wound becomes a source of healing for the world or just a private pain you carry alone is what I call the wound keeper's choice. You can choose to be a wound hoarder, someone who keeps their pain locked away, hidden, private, protected from ever being used for anything beyond personal survival. Or you can choose to be a wound steward, someone who offers their transformed pain as medicine for others who are bleeding from similar injuries. I know how terrifying this choice feels. I know that every instinct in you wants to protect your wound, to keep it safe, to never let anyone see it or touch it, or know how deep it really goes. You've worked so hard to heal, fought so fiercely to survive, sacrificed so much to get to where you are now. The thought of exposing that sacred tender place again feels like volunteering to be re-wounded, like offering to let someone else break what you've worked so hard to mend. But here's what I need you to understand. Stewarding your wound doesn't mean re-injuring it. It doesn't mean letting people hurt you again in the same way. It doesn't mean becoming a victim again or putting yourself in harm's way. Stewarding your wound means allowing the wisdom you've gained from healing to become medicine for others, letting the strength you've developed through surviving to become support for those who are still fighting, using the compassion you've cultivated through your own pain to comfort those who are still bleeding. You've become an expert in the exact kind of pain that almost destroyed you. You know what it feels like to be suicidal and choose to live anyway. You understand what it's like to feel abandoned and learn to find security in solitude. You comprehend what it means to be betrayed and still choose to trust again. You know things about surviving, healing, recovering, and thriving that can only be known by someone who has walked through that specific valley of death and emerged alive. And right now, there are people drowning in the same darkness you escaped. There are souls suffocating under the same weight that once crushed you. There are hearts breaking in the same way yours once broke. And they need someone who speaks their language of pain. Someone who understands their dialect of despair, someone who has graduated from their school of suffering and can show them that graduation is possible. But becoming a wound steward requires something that feels counterintuitive. Instead of hiding your scars, you have to let them show. Instead of pretending your pain never happened, you have to acknowledge that it shaped you. Instead of acting like you've always been strong, you have to admit that your strength was forged in weakness, that your wisdom was earned through wounds, that your compassion was cultivated through your own desperate need for compassion. This is what I mean when I say that your testimony is more powerful than your theology, that your story is more convincing than your sermons, that your scars are more healing than your success. People don't need to hear how perfect you are. They need to hear how perfectly I can work through imperfect, wounded, broken people who have learned to let their pain become their purpose. When you tell someone who's suicidal that you once wanted to die but chose to live, they don't just hear hope, they hear proof that hope is possible from someone who knows the depths of hopelessness. When you tell someone who's been abandoned that you survived being left and learned to find wholeness in solitude, they don't just receive encouragement, they receive evidence that wholeness is achievable from someone who knows abandonment intimately. Your wound is not your weakness. It's your weapon against the same kind of pain in other people's lives. Your scar is not your shame. It's your strength to help others believe that wounds can heal. Your broken place is not your flaw. It's your qualification to speak into other people's brokenness with authority that only comes from having been broken and choosing to heal. But I need to be honest with you about what wound stewardship costs. It costs you the luxury of complete emotional safety. It costs you the comfort of never having to feel that pain again. It costs you the protection of anonymity, of being just another face in the crowd instead of someone who stands up and says, I survived this, and so can you. Every time you use your wound to help someone else heal, you risk feeling echoes of your own pain. Every time you enter someone else's darkness to show them the way out, you risk remembering your own journey through that same darkness. Every time you offer your scar as proof that wounds can heal, you risk someone touching that tender place in ways that remind you of how much it once hurt. This is why most people choose to be wound hoarders instead of wound stewards. This is why most survivors keep their survival stories private instead of public. This is why most healers hide their own healed wounds instead of using them as credentials for helping others heal. But you're not most people. If you were, you wouldn't be here, listening to these words, feeling this stirring in your spirit, recognizing this call to something greater than just your own healing. You're someone who was wounded not just for your own transformation, but for the transformation of others who are still trapped in the kind of pain you've escaped. And that brings me to something that will take your breath away. Something about what happens when you fully embrace wound stewardship, when you completely surrender to using your pain as medicine for others. What will take your breath away? What happens when you fully embrace wound stewardship, when you completely surrender to using your pain as medicine for others, is that your individual scar begins to harmonize with the scars of every other wound steward in the world, creating what I call the Wound Symphony, a sacred music that can only be played by hearts that have been broken in specific ways and healed through specific grace. Right now, as you're hearing these words, there's a woman in Tokyo whose heart was shattered by the same kind of betrayal that once broke yours, and she's learning to use that transformed pain to help other betrayed hearts heal. There's a man in São Paulo whose soul was crushed by the same kind of rejection that once devastated you, and he's beginning to steward that wound as medicine for other rejected souls. There's a teenager in Cairo whose spirit was wounded by the same kind of abuse that once traumatized you, and they're discovering how to transform that pain into protection for other vulnerable spirits. And when you all choose wound stewardship simultaneously, when you all decide to let your scars sing instead of hide, something magnificent happens. Your individual healing songs combine into a symphony so beautiful, so powerful, so healing that it can reach hearts that no single story could ever touch. Your note in this symphony is irreplaceable. The particular pitch of your pain, the unique tone of your trauma, the specific frequency of your healing, it creates a sound that resonates with certain hearts in ways that no other wound steward's note can. There are people who will only be healed by hearing your exact melody of survival, your precise harmony of hope, your distinctive rhythm of redemption. But here's what will absolutely overwhelm you. This wound symphony doesn't just heal individuals, it heals bloodlines. When you choose to steward your wound, when you transform your pain into purpose, you're not just helping strangers heal from similar wounds. You're breaking generational cycles of woundedness that have been passed down through family lines for decades, sometimes centuries. That abuse that wounded you, when you heal it and help others heal from similar abuse, you're not just stopping the cycle in your own life, you're preventing that same wound from being passed to your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. That abandonment that broke you, when you transform it and help others transform similar abandonment, you're creating a legacy of presence instead of absence for generations of your family who haven't even been born yet. Every wound you steward becomes a generational blessing instead of a generational curse. Every scar you turn into medicine becomes healing that travels backward through time to comfort ancestors who endured similar pain, and forward through time to prevent descendants from inheriting similar wounds. You're not just a wound steward, you're a generational chain breaker. You're not just healing individuals, you're healing entire family trees. You're not just stopping cycles of pain, you're starting cycles of healing that will ripple through bloodlines for centuries. But the Wound Symphony creates something even more extraordinary than individual or generational healing. When enough wound stewards choose to let their scars sing, when enough broken and healed hearts contribute their unique notes to this sacred music, the symphony becomes so powerful that it begins to heal the wounded places in creation itself. The earth itself has been wounded by violence, by hatred, by the accumulated pain of billions of broken hearts across thousands of years. And just as individual hearts can be healed, just as family lines can be restored, the heart of creation itself can be mended through the collective healing song of transformed wounds. This is why your pain was never just about you. This is why your healing can't just be for you. This is why your wound stewardship matters not just to the individuals you'll directly help, but to the cosmic healing of everything that has been broken since the beginning of time. You are part of a healing revolution that transcends time, space, culture, and circumstance. You are contributing